lots of versatility. A lot of people playing Zoroark lock decks. I know a lot of the American players are opting to go for that list.
Yeah, we saw that round 1 with Caleb Gedmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And a few other very well-established names are also incorporating that to their strategy today. There's also been, from the Europeans, a lot of them are playing Granbull, which is very interesting, as well as Decidueye Ninetales, an archetype that we've already seen in the Lille special event without the new Fairy Alolan Ninetales.
Yeah.
So now with a breath of life, with that Alolan Ninetales, the fairy one that can grab you such important cards, rare candy, counter gain, even things like Timeable can be really big deals if it's going to help you get into a Swampert and get you drawing cards.
All right, so there we have our players. They're getting set up now. You have Jorge on the left, Robin on the right. And now that they have their headsets on, we can start talking about the matchup. Jorge's playing a deck that has been super dominant for the past few regionals that have happened in Standard. And that's Malamar, like toolbox.
Yeah, it's playing all sorts of different attackers. He's playing one of the new Giratinas, but he's also packing the old good stuff. He's playing the Marshallow GX, he's playing Necrozma GX, he's got Dawnwings Necrozma, so he can do all sorts of different things with his list.
And then as you saw from Robin's prizes there, he actually opted to go with Gardevoir GX for the tournament.
Man, I'm so excited. He's got that Super Boost energy already in his hand. And I mean, he's going to try and abuse this amazing Alolan Ninetales engine and use things like Professor Elm, then go into Beacons and go into Alolan Ninetales GX using Mysterious Guidance, getting lots of rare candies, building a massive board, and getting big Gardevoir GXs to start swinging.
Yeah, and there's actually quite a few surprises in both of these lists here. If you want to talk about a little bit of Robin's list.
So yeah, as we've already seen, it's got that Super Boost energy. So his draw engine is going to be from the Swampert, and that's a really interesting thing. Obviously, Zoroark can get you 2 cards for the price of 1. Swampert can get you 3.
I mean, you're already playing 4 rare candy anyway. Why not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the only Stage 2 he's playing. He's playing Gardevoir, he's playing Swampert. He's also somehow found room for a 1/0/1 line of the Solgaleo GX.
The promo coming out recently,
That's the one.
where its ability just gets rid of your weakness.
Mm-hmm. That means that you're protected against other Solgaleos, for example, which is definitely a big deal. And it just is going to be an extra way to get even more energies onto the board throughout the game.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on with his deck. But meanwhile, Jorge starting the game off with his Malamar, 2 Inkay, and the Ditto Prism. The Ditto Prism is going to be really interesting because it allows him to play a few different things in his deck. It's another Inkay. That's really what it's here for.
Yeah, it's pretty much wanting to get as many Malamars onto the board is always your goal. So having a 5th Inkay is always a great deal for you. And he's had a pretty nice turn, to be honest. He's got a couple Inkays down, a few Psych Energy into the discard pile. He's had a really good start.
Yeah, Shrine of Punishment as well. And he actually plays one of Garb Odor from Guardians Rising. The Trashlands Garb Odor, the big bad of the format for a while. Robin actually is pretty familiar with this card as well.
Yeah.
Using it to take down the World Championships. And it's really non-existent in the field right now.
Yeah, and especially in Malamar decks. We've never really seen that combination ever before. So being able to see that incorporated into this list could definitely catch some people off guard. I wonder if it's going to be something that could be a stumbling block for Robin this game.
Yeah, really only using it with that Ditto Prism Star, but hey, why not?
As we see Robin go for his opening Professor Elm's Lecture, such a key supporter card. We've already said that word or that sentence so often already today because it is the turn 1. It's ideal for all these setup decks, and they really are just so strong now that you have Beacon to fall back on. He's got himself out a Mudkip, a Ralts, as well as that Ditto Prism Star, which has that almighty evolution. It can't jump straight up into Stage 2s, but it can still evolve up into any Stage 1 that he wants. So he has the option to get into Curliers, or he also plays a Marsh Tomp. So that's definitely something that he can be trying to opt for, and he's going to go for the Beacon to end out his turn here to grab himself a Tapu Lele for any option that he wants next turn, as well as a Swampert.
Yeah, pretty good combination of cards here. If you looked at his hand before, you see like a Guzma, maybe a Rare Candy, and the Solgaleo GX, and it's not really much going on, but he went second. Yeah, I'm going to use this free attack to search for the exact 2 cards I wanted for next turn.
Yeah, and now he's in great shape all over again. And the one thing that was slow about Jorge's start was no manual attachment that turn. So it's going to be difficult for him to even start pressurizing this Alolan Vulpix, let alone anything else on the opponent's side of the field right now.
And there we have no hiding it right now. Garb Odor comes down for Jorge there.
We're also going to see the escape board retreating straight into a Deoxys, and then we're going to see a Guzma immediately after. And then just a pass, trying to slow down Robin here because there's not much else going on in his hand.
Yeah, no real draw supporter there, and no energy to speak of for Jorge there.
That's really rough, and as we said, Robin's deck loves to set up. It builds that board and tries to be as intimidating as possible. We're going to see he's going to rare candy up into that Swampert, get to use that amazing ability, discard 1, draw 3, such a great deal. He's also got himself a Stadium card, bouncing that Shrine out the way and also helping him search even more Pokemon out if he wishes.
Yeah, Power Draw definitely an upgrade from trade that's normally with Zoroark GX, but granted this is on a regular non-GX Pokemon here. Granted it is the Stage 2.
And he's found himself an Ultra Ball as well, so he could go for an Alolan Ninetales GX here, get even more rare candies and Stage 2s onto the board. It looks like he's up for an absolutely amazing turn here.
That's really what decks like this do. With Alolan Ninetales GX, you just set up all these Stage 2s, and you're like, okay, this is my board. Try to beat it.
Yeah, beat it if you can. He's also got that Ditto in play as well, so he could be evolving that this turn, leaving the Vulpix for future evolution as well. So there's lots of options Robin's got available to him right now. He's holding on to that super boost energy. He's not going to be able to get full value from it this turn because he's only got 1 Ralts down, but he's going to be looking to get other attackers on the board, potentially using that Fairy Alolan Ninetales in combination with a Guzma to get an attack off.
Yeah, and Nick and I were talking earlier about decks like these that use the Alolan Ninetales. It's really like full greed, like max greed. And you just like, I'm going to play a bunch of rare candies, timer balls, ultra balls, get my whole setup. And usually that's something that's punished by a card like Garbodor. But with Gardevoir GX, you can just shuffle all those back into the deck.
Yeah, I mean, when Gardevoir was first released, it was basically the savior of the format because the Trash Launch was just overwhelmingly powerful. Everyone was using Versus Seeker just to be consistent and get stuff going, so it was really important to have that, the Gardevoir, so that you could, reset the clock for the Trash Launch. So having that option all over again is going to be a great deal for Robin, as he has gone for that Alolan Ninetales. He's got it into the active position, second energy on it as well, so he's done pretty much everything he's wanted to this turn. He hasn't actually evolved up his Ralts just yet, but it still looks like it's his turn, so he may be mulling a few things over here.
Definitely looks like it. Might have just attacked and taken the knockout on that Inkay.
Yeah, that looks to be the case, and probably the Ralts was off his prizes, because otherwise there's no real reason not to put it down, unless he's looking to Ultra Ball it for the Gardevoir next turn. We see Jorge now, he's just not too content with his turn, thinking about what else he can do here, and he's going to...
Yeah, just scoop up the game here. Not really drawing anything after that Lily turn 1, and...
I mean, that's one of the things with Robin's deck. If it gets set up, it is so intimidating that, that slow start is just... There's no way for Jorge to come back into that game. So, especially if he was drawing a little bit suboptimally, not able to respond to any of these attackers in any way, shape, or form, it just means that he needs to buy himself as much time as possible to finish not only the next game, but also potentially take it all in a game 3.
Yeah, exactly. And Robin just showing what these new cards are doing for his deck. Elms turn 1, Alolan Ninetales GX turn 2, Concession turn 3. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've got a Swampert. I can draw 3 cards every turn in addition to my supporters. I've got, as many item cards as I want from my deck accessible. And I've got Gardevoir building up in the back, which, by the way, hits like a truck.
Yeah, 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. It's always been an attack that has been insanely good in Pokemon TCG, but it's really been like 20 damage multiplier. Yeah,
and seeing as that times 3 is just, it escalates so quickly, especially with that Secret Spring ability, able to go over the top sometimes. The more Gardevoirs you have in play, the more potential output you can achieve. So there's always something in the back of your opponent's mind, fearful of how insane one Gardevoir can become.
Yeah, and we're talking about Gardevoir, but Alolan Ninetales GX is an amazing attacker outright itself. 70 and 30 damage, knocking out that Inkay, putting 30 on another Inkay so you can take another knockout, maybe Guzma, just more double knockouts than you can imagine. You can charge it up in one turn with the Gardevoir Secret Spring.
Yep.
And then against certain matchups, its GX attack is amazing.
Yeah, it's oozing synergy, this deck. It's amazing. The Ninetales helps out the Gardevoir. The Gardevoir helps out the Ninetales. The Swampert helps out everybody. It's just got all sorts of different help going on throughout the deck. And once it gets going, man, is it powerful.
All right, let's take a look at Jorge's prize cards here. He does prize that one Ditto Prism, so we will not see that Garbodor come into play this game so far. Also having that one Deoxys prize as well.
Yeah, a little bit awkward for him, especially when it's a deck that plays so many like individual attackers as just one single copy. You hope to recycle the important ones in matchups with things like Rescue Stretcher, but if it's prized, you don't have access to it.
Yeah.
Robin over here, he's going to start laying down his. There's some very important one-off cards, things like the Super Boost, which you want to dodge.
Oh,
Swampert being
101 Swampert in the prizes
that's
there.
a little bit awkward for him, for sure.
I do believe he does play a 202 though, so...
Yeah, he's playing it safe.
Or 212.
Yeah, he wants to make sure that he can get that Swampert online. It's so integral to keep drawing cards. You don't only want to find like more evolutions, you also want to find yourself energy cards to keep secret springing and just making your board as big as possible. We do see Jorge kick off with the perfect Ultra Ball for a Malamar player. 2 Psychics immediately in the discard pile.
Yeah, it's exactly what you need to fuel your Psychic recharges later on in the game. It'll be interesting to see if he has an energy to attach for the turn as well. Not really having a good attacker really to commit that energy to.
Oh boy, but he's going to keep throwing energy into the discard pile. He's got himself 2 Inkays straight away. He's also got a Mysterious Treasure to put another Psychic into the discard pile. Find himself another Inkay. He's really trying to just go all in and get as many energies in play, later down the line via that Psychic recharge ability. He's also got himself a Cynthia in his hand at the very least, so this is going to be a pretty good turn 1 for him again.
Definitely a much better start than he had last game here. Lily for 7 cards, I believe.
Yeah, the big 7. Let's see if he can
bad.
get any attackers going. It looks like he also has something he was lacking last game, which was a turn 1 manual attachment as well, so he can start pressurizing a lot better now. He does have himself a Dawn Wings as well as a regular Necrozma GX. Both, are GX Pokemon, so there's always some sort of fear around having to put them into play. So it looks like he's content to just attach to the active this turn and pass it over to Robin.
Yeah, his deck kind of matches up pretty awkwardly with a card like Gardevoir GX. You don't really have a good attacker against something that powerful. Necrozma GX is probably your only real way of winning this game. Yeah. And if he kind of commits it too early, it could be trouble for him.
That's definitely why we saw him commit to 3 Inkays. He knows he's going to have to try and recycle, large energy attack costs, trying to get 4 Psychics on the board like every turn, trying to recycle that Necrozma GX, maybe even use Marshadow GX if he has to stay into this game. Robin does miss the Elm, which is a bit of a problem for him, but he's already established a Cosmog as well as a Ditto Prism Star, so if this Cynthia gets him into anything else, he could still be in good shape. Looks like he's whiffed the potential to Beacon this turn, which is a big deal.
Yeah, no sign of Alolan Vulpix, and with so many outs in his deck, cards like Brooklet Hill and even just Ultra Ball, granted, that Ditto can evolve into Alolan Ninetales GX next turn, but definitely not the start he's looking for here. Oh, does he actually have a Brooklet Hill in play?
I think he had that before the Cynthia, so at least he had that to fall back on. Interesting that he chose not to do it first. It means that he was probably hoping to get as many Vulpix down as possible, or even find one of them and then are able to then use the Brooklet to find yourself a Mudkip.
Yeah.
So those are both really integral parts of the combination. So at the end of the day, he is able to retreat that Ralts, which is really good for him, and he is going to end off on a Beacon, as we saw how important it was, to start off that first game. He's going to do the exact same here, picking out some of the most important cards from his deck to really get his setup going.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting to see how this deck functions when it doesn't get that Elms.
Wow, it's really interesting that he went for a Gardevoir GX as well as a Ralts rather than going for the Alolan Ninetales. It's typically something you do go for, so he's probably got some amazing items already in his hand if he just wants to get more Ralts into play with this Beacon here. Jorge's deck, playing the Malamar build, often known for having Marshadow in here. It's a great way to disrupt Beacon, one of the only decks that actually does incorporate that Marshadow for the Let Loose, and that's going to be something that he may want to try and find this turn if he's able to. We are going to see him get that Giratina out of the discard pile. That's the amazing ability. Giratina Distortion Door, able to go straight from the discard pile onto your board whilst also getting the added benefit of putting 1 damage counter onto 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. He's also going to start committing some escape boards as well as refreshing his hand with a Cynthia here.
All right, only getting one Malamar in play so far, hoping to draw a couple more off of this Cynthia, but so far, a much better start to this game than game one.
Yeah, he's actually got attackers now threatening the board, which is already something that he didn't really have last game. So let's see if this Cynthia gets him into any more of these Malamars. So integral for the deck. He does have himself a Mysterious Treasure, and he's got that Let Loose available to him if he wants to commit that to the board as well. Here comes the Mysterious Treasure. He's going to be discarding a Lily and finding himself most likely a Malamar because he wants to get this Giratina attacking this turn for that Shadow Impact attack. So trying to get as many of those into play is always the goal of your Malamar players. And let's see if he wants to finish off on a Let Loose or if he wants to keep that board space available to him for other GX Pokemon. Looks like he is going to try and deny that Beacon because, as we said, Robin's deck is so reliant on these sorts of setup attacks to get rolling that you want to deny that at any cost.
Yeah, you kind of, if you're Jorge, you kind of feel something's up too. When he beacons for a Gardevoir and a Ralts, you're like, he probably already has the Ninetales in his hand, already has the rare candy in his hand. I need to do something.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. So try and put him down to 4. Give him a slower turn, hopefully, as you could, again, still draw into more helpful cards. And he does indeed get himself an Acrobike, which can help him dig a little further. Gets another Psychic Energy into the discard pile. We are going to see him round out his turn with a couple Psychic recharges, which is exactly what you're looking for. He can then retreat out of his Tapu Lele and go for that Shadow Impact attack. Looks like he's happy to put the 4 damage counters onto his own Tapu Lele in the back there.
Yeah, placing the damage is probably one of like the decisions you need to make the most, and it's also very matchup dependent as well. Robin's deck doesn't really focus on really attacking the bench that much. He's really all in on the Gardevoir active. I guess the one bench damage he has is the Alolan Ninetales GX.
Yeah, that's the reason why you don't want to put your Malamars at risk. You obviously don't want to Shadow Impact your own Giratina because it means Robin only would need 1 energy attachment on his Gardevoir GX to get a knockout. So it seems to be that the Tapu Lele was the best choice, especially because Marshadow then immediately becomes into range of the Alolan Ninetales. So definitely the correct option to go for here, as we do see Robin get out his Mudkip here. Looks like from the Brooklet Hills, so he's at least got something going for him.
Yeah, and looking at his hand, he does have Ultra Ball, which could get him that Alolan Ninetales GX. Also a Cynthia and an Energy as well.
He has not missed a beat here.
That's a pretty good Let Loose for him.
That Let Loose has done pretty good. He does have to get rid of a couple of, well, important pieces here. He's going to get rid of a Fairy Energy as well as a Vulpix. Always cards you want to continue to see, but he's not going to be sad about it because he's able to find himself that Alolan Ninetales using Mysterious Guidance, going for that big Timer Ball.
Oh yeah,
as
here
well
we
as
go.
The rare candy. Some big flips coming up, folks.
All right. Can he hit a heads for that Gardevoir GX?
This is going to be huge.
Tails.
He's doing one roll at a time. Ooh, he clutches the heads.
And there you have it. Robin hitting the 50% on Timer Ball.
We got it. We got that rare candy. Gardevoir GX. Bench that Ralts. Big Cynthia for 6 here. And he's going to be looking to find himself at least a Fairy Energy as well as any other energy to boot because he can Secret Spring and continue to attach even more energy on here so he can threaten that Giratina in one shot.
Yeah, actually opting to discard the Fairy Energy he had in his hand over saving the Ralts, kind of valuing getting more Gardevoir in play.
I guess he's kind of thinking that he has so many more outs to just energy in general, and he could even be content with a Twilight GX turn if he does miss a beat. So trying to get as much going as possible here. The big Cynthia just gets him 1 energy, so he's not going to be able to take the knockout. He could set himself up for the Ninetales later down the line by doing 120 damage this turn with Infinite Force just for the 1 attachment, or he could go for a Twilight if he feels like he wants to recover some key cards like rare candies. We haven't seen many heal cards, but he could put some more supporters in there, stuff like that, if he feels so inclined.
Yeah, it's definitely disheartening to see, though, when you had the energy and then chose to discard it, and then you have so many outs to just your other option to play, and then you get the one option that you didn't take.
Yeah, it's always the way. But as we said, because we do have that Alolan Ninetales available, you can still mop this up later, and you'll still be fairly content with it. So it's not the worst amount of damage in the world.
It's actually set up on the board right now to where Alolan Ninetales could take 2 prizes if he chooses to.
Yeah, it could be dealt on the Inkay, the Marshadow, or the Fairy Lele, as we do actually see Jorge now evolve up into that 3rd Malamar. The only other good thing about this is that now Jorge's board is full, so he knows that his Gardevoir is going to be safe this turn. With 3 Malamars being threatened, you could start seeing some big GX knockouts start coming in. So Robin leaving the Giratina in play means that he pretty much can't take any big knockouts on the Gardevoir, so we're having to see Jorge settle for trying to deal with the engine here instead.
Yeah, bringing up that Mudkip, just not wanting Swampert in play, puts the 4 damage on a Malamar on his bench, not wanting to give up another free prize with Marshadow.
Yeah, definitely an awkward spot for him. That Shadow Impact's not really an attack you want to spam over and over again because that effect can start becoming detrimental for you, but it's something that he's had to settle for here because it's really the only thing he has going on his board, because he had to unfortunately start with the non-GX Tapu Lele, and he's committed the let loose, rightly so we have to say, because he had to deny Robin that beacon, but it has meant that his board is a little bit clogged right now.
Yeah, that is one thing that Malamar as a deck does pretty well, though. If your opponent focuses on your attackers throughout the match, they're not really disrupting you. You still have your Malamars on your bench. If they knock out someone, you can just bring out a new guy. That's even better. Charge it up and take a knockout.
Absolutely. So we do see Robin here go for that Cynthia. Looks like, again, he's in that mode where he's just looking for energy cards. Again, if he could recycle a Mudkip, that would be a big deal for him. Jorge identifying that the Swampert is so important for making this deck find all of its pieces at once. So we're going to see the big Cynthia here, looking for energy cards of any description, really. But again, it's a big whiff from him.
No energy cards at all here.
Oof, that is rough. He's found himself a Curlier, so he can start threatening more Gardevoirs later down the line. But this is a really big miss from him, and he's going to have to pass. And Jorge's found himself a good spot now.
Yeah, found himself a good spot, but that Shadow Impact is just going to keep increasing the damage on his side of the field. He kind of wants this Giratina to be knocked out.
Yeah, he's going to continue to try and pick off whatever he can, doing that Guzma again, dealing with Curlier, retreating out of that escape-boarded Lele, and finishing his turn with a Shadow Impact, putting 40 on, once again, another one of those Malamars.
I feel like if Robin is able to get some energy cards going in the next couple turns, he's in a pretty good position with all this damage on Jorge's side of the field, but his hand is double Guzma, double Rare Candy. He does have a Tapu Lele, though.
Yeah, he has played a lot of Cynthias. This is the only thing that I'm slightly concerned about. He's played a couple already.
I think he's played 3.
He's played, yeah, so there may not even be an ideal supporter for him off this Tapu Lele. That's why you sort of see him agonizing over what he can do here. We're just going to see him finish his turn with an Infinite Force to end that Giratina.
Yeah, you don't really want to commit that Tapu Lele. It's a pretty easy Pokemon to knock out with a deck like Jorge's.
Yeah, and you've already seen he plays Shrine of Punishment at least in one copy, so he's definitely going to keep an eye out for that throughout the game. As we do see Jorge now, his board's opened up. He's got the space. If he wants to recover that Giratina, he always can, but we're going to see him Mysterious Treasure for a different attacker now, and with 3 Malamars in play, this is going to be a big knockout.
Yeah, just being able to Psychic Recharge 3 times, and then if he has the Psychic in his hand for the turn, just a Prismatic Burst for a ton of damage.
Yeah, that is going to be a huge deal. You can see, here come all the big Psychic Recharges. This is why he committed his board to so many Malamars for this moment right now, where he's going to be dealing with Robin's real, only attacker, as you see the big Prismatic Burst. 4 Psych Energy being discarded for 2 prizes here.
Yeah, leaving Robin with just the Cosmog, which does nothing in this matchup, and then a Alolan Ninetales with no energy on it.
Very awkward for Robin here. He is going to go for that Tapu Lele. It might even be an Elm here, just because he needs to get more basics onto this board, and he's not doing much else.
Guzma, I believe.
Yeah, and he's already got plenty of Guzma in his hands, so this is going to be really difficult for Robin to come back from here. To be honest, there's a lot of energy in that discard that Jorge can abuse every single turn. One of the only real saving graces is that Necrozma has a chunky retreat cost. He's kind of hoping that maybe Jorge can't move it next turn because, he's down to 1 prize. It's really going to be quite easy for him to finish anything off now on Robin's side of the field.
Yeah, and one thing that I love about a deck like this Malamar is if you don't try to take down the Malamar, they can just explode out of the gate.
There it is. 3 Malamars hit the field, 1 big Prismatic Burst later. These Stage 2 decks are still difficult to chain a lot of the time. If you don't get that perfect setup, that beacon was disrupted by the Marshadow, and that value really did pay off. It meant that Robin couldn't get the ideal setup going, whiffed a couple energies, and it was enough for Jorge to take advantage of the game.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to Robin just choosing to value the Ralts over the Fairy energy and then not hitting what he needed off that Cynthia.
Yeah, it was definitely awkward for him. I don't mind that he didn't take the knockout on the Giratina, because as we said, and as we saw, the Prismatic Burst can come out of anywhere and
Yeah.
just destroy your Gardevoir, which was his only attacker at the time. So I don't mind him trying to set up those knockouts with that Alolan Ninetales. I think it's good approach play. It just didn't pay off for him. The Cynthia's just had some big misses there.
And that's where I think that's the one drawback to this format is a lot of the supporters we have access to are kind of lackluster, especially later on in the game. Like, we saw his hand was a bunch of cards he couldn't play.
Yeah.
And if he did play a card like Lily, which he doesn't, but if he did, like, that doesn't help you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it seriously highlights how important the Swampert is for his deck. Game 1, he got it going, and then he got everything. This game, Jorge picked off that Mudkip before it could evolve, and Robin was really struggling to get the correct combinations of cards all at the right times.
Well, even Robin just not getting the Elms means that he had to Brooklet for the Vulpix instead of that Mudkip.
So it is going to be Robin going first in this game 3. It's been electric pace. He has got himself a mulligan here, and it's really down to Robin now being able to go first. There's definitely some big things he's going to look for. Elm is always one of them. Leading a Vulpix is always a great deal. Even when you go first, you don't mind it, because the Alolan Ninetales can be one of your earliest best attackers compared to the Gardevoir that needs so much to get going all at once. The Ninetales can start doing that 70 damage to the active and 30 to the bench, which is great pressure with that snowy wind attack. So these are the things Robin's going to be looking for.
Yeah, if you think about the matchup, the way it is too, Malamar is very much a setup-intensive deck. They're not going to surprise attack you, take a knockout on turn 1, like maybe a Buzzwole or something like that. And so going first is even more of an advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. Both decks are evolution-focused, and that's going to be a big deal to be able to get that going before Jorge, and hopefully he can get multiple stage 2s out. That's what he's looking to do. Things like that timeable can come into play.
Yeah.
See those coin flips and how big they can be sometimes. So it's not like Jorge's out to this game at any stretch of the imagination. He's definitely...
Ooh.
Oh boy, those are some hideous prize cards though.
3 Guzma in the prizes.
3 Guzma, that is definitely not what you're looking for. He does play the full 4, but 3 of them is going to be very awkward. And we see Robin, the thing that he was whiffing last game was actually energy cards, and now we see in his prizes there's going to be 2 fairy and a double colorless, so that's also a little bit awkward for him.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how these prize cards affect this last game here in round 4. Plenty of time left to finish too, over 23 minutes.
And we see Robin, not the dream, doesn't have Professor Elm's lecture. He's going to have to settle for a Cynthia here and hope to find some more basics off the gate.
Oh, that is not what you want to see. Not even playing a Brooklet Hill or anything down. Just, yeah, this hand is terrible. I have to shuffle it away.
These are not the pieces that I'm looking for. That is always the criticism of Stage 2 decks. If you get things in the wrong order, nothing's playable. If it starts flowing all at once, you're going to have an absolutely amazing deck. But looks like he's found himself a pretty good Cynthia. A lot of Pokemon in there.
Talk about a pretty amazing deck. He does have a Ralts and that Ditto Prism.
Ditto Prism, so versatile,
no, it's not
so
a Ralts,
useful.
it's a Kirlia.
It's a Kirlia. Ooh, so that's not quite as perfect, but he's got himself at least a Cosmog. Cosmog can do, 120, and that's still enough to deal with a lot of Jorge's one prize Pokemon. So
Has resistance to Psychic too.
yeah, that's also a big deal. So it's definitely a tanky option that he can go for in the game. So at least he's found himself some playables and also a Cynthia for the following turn, as well as that Alolan Ninetales. So it's not the worst Cynthia for him in the world. As we see, passing it over to Jorge again, he's finding it really easy to get those Psych Energies into the discard pile, which is always something you're after.
Yeah, we actually saw a card like Oricorio from Guardians Rising be played in Malamar decks for a while because you play it from your hand to your bench, search your deck for 2 basic energy. Jorge's opted not to include it, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see because he got his energy last game right away, and it allowed him to do that big 4 energy prismatic burst. And 1 in the discard, 1 for attach for the turn. It's not bad.
Yeah, and he gets to Lily on top of this to draw himself up to 8 cards as it is his first turn. He's also attached to that Inkay, potentially a Hypnosis flip, denying a beacon could be a big deal. Looks like he's not found himself any other attackers here though, so he may have to settle for the Hypnosis. Don't know where he could retreat to.
I think there's a couple Malamar in his hand, 3 Cynthia.
Oof. Yeah, that's really awkward for
some
him.
energy, not really stuff you want to see. Maybe looks like escape rope.
Yeah, it looks like he's eyeing up that escape rope, so not going for the hypnosis, going for a different route here. Maybe trying to make it more difficult for the Ninetales to get an attack off, or...
So the escape rope's pretty interesting because it does disrupt Beacon, like any Beacon plays that Robin was able to do, but it actually helps him out if he chooses to go the route of Solgaleo GX.
If this is a timeable rare candy play from Mysterious Guidance, it could be a big Cynthia looking for double colorless energy here.
3 in the deck.
3 in the deck, so we are going to see Robin committing that Ditto to becoming a Curlier, and he's actually just going to go for the Cynthia off the bat here.
Definitely valuing the setup with Beacon a little bit more here.
Yeah, he's still looking for lots of basic Pokemon, and wants to find himself, Mudkip as well as Ralts, and if he can draw back into some more concrete pieces of the puzzle, get a Ninetales up this turn as well, if he really needs to get some stage 2s out, especially if he is able to find a double colorless off this draw.
And to be fair, Jorge's start was not optimal either.
We are going to see he's able to pull out 1 Ralts. Here's where all the energy have been hiding this whole game. He's going to be able to bench it, and probably just a retreat into the Beacon. Is probably what I'm going to be looking to see here. It's a little bit awkward because you're sort of sacrificing, or potentially sacrificing, the only Vulpix you have available. The only real upside is that Jorge didn't have the ideal start, just a couple Inks, that he now has the headache of trying to retreat on his own end to get attackers going. So he's hoping that this Vulpix can stay in play for another turn. He's already got himself a Lele in his hand, so potentially looking for some stage 2 Pokemon now. The Gardevoir and the Ninetales is going to be his 2 options here with this Beacon.
Yeah, to be fair though, Jorge's turn 1 wasn't very good, but his hand I think is double Malamar, Escape Board, Shrine of Punishment. As long as he finds a way to actually get an attacker that he can start charging up, it's going to be looking pretty bad for Robin early on.
Yeah, it's been, kind of a missed beat this turn where he's not had quite the ideal. Obviously, missing the Elm always slows these sort of stage 2 decks down. We are going to see Jorge commit that escape board to the active, evolving up to the bench, and looks like he wants to put the Shrine into play before using one of these Cynthias. Although he'd love to evolve into a Malamar, because he wants to get attacking this turn and dealing with that Vulpix ASAP, he wants to guarantee that he can move this Inkay out the active.
Yeah, unfortunately, his own escape rope made it possible to where he can't retreat the Malamar.
Yeah, a little bit awkward for him, but at the same time, it forced Robin to pay retreat out of a Beacon, so you can justify that sort of play. And let's see what he's able to draw into. He's got himself Acrobike, so he's not finished yet. And looks like he also drew into a couple of rescue stretchers. Another Acrobike coming down. There's a Mysterious Treasure, so at least he can start threatening some attackers this turn.
Yeah, it'll be just interesting to see if he actually opts to go for Marshadow with Let Loose this turn as well to get rid of that Beacon, because Robin's going to have a pretty good turn next turn.
Yeah, that's definitely something you could eye up, especially because he's not got any basic energy in his hand, so he's not going to be able to knock out this Vulpix this turn, most likely. So maybe using a Marshadow to sort of reset your hand and give it a second go could be the route that he goes for here.
But again, that's really just delaying the inevitable a little bit.
Here comes that Let Loose. He's going to Mysterious Treasure and pop down that Marshadow Let Loose ability. Both players go to 4. Robin had, a Ninetales and a Gardevoir ready to go. Those have been denied once again from Jorge. It worked out for him so well in that game 2, brought him level in this match. Let's see how it works out for him this round.
Yeah, Marshadow, an interesting card, really didn't see play until the World Championships last year by most of the Brazilian players as well. And then now finding its home in these Malamar decks, thanks to Mysterious Treasure just being so convenient for it.
Yeah.
It's one of the few ways that we can actually disrupt our opponent in the format right now.
That's the biggest deal, I think.
Yeah.
Just because there are so many setup-intensive decks, being able to put someone to 4 cards can really just deny that and buy you a lot of turns to do whatever you want, really. It looks like Jorge was able to find himself a Ditto Prism Star, but not much else. So he's just going to have to pass with his little Inkay in the active position. And it goes back over to Robin, who is eyeing up some Ultra Balls. And looks like there's at least one Gardevoir in there as well. So once again, he's going to have a pretty reasonable turn here.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the hand where you don't really want to discard anything. Your hand's too good to actually discard with Ultra Ball.
You might just want to use Tapu Lele to find yourself like an Elm just for some like discardable cards so that you can Ultra Ball for that Alolan Ninetales, and then you can Secret Spring and do everything else. But looks like Robin instead is going to try and reset his hand in this way just by going for that Cynthia instead. He can evolve straight up into that Gardevoir, commit both energies if he wishes to. There is the Secret Spring and the commitment of the double colorless, and he's just going to fire off that Cynthia, risking missing, of course. He did have that Ultra Ball in hand that he could have gone for a different route here. Instead, he's going to try and reshuffle his hand and see if he can find himself that Alolan Ninetales once again.
It definitely have a lot of outs, though, especially shuffling back in that Ultra Ball. Yeah. It's just another Alolan Ninetales, essentially.
And if he gets that, he can get even more things going. He can get himself, once again, more rare candies, more stage 2s. He can find himself
another Gardevoir.
Another Gardevoir, for example. If he plays Field Blower, he can deal with a Shrine of Punishments, which may be frustrating for him to deal with. So, again, it's down to this big Cynthia to see what he can get. And just a bunch of supporter cards, which is really awkward for him. He can bounce the Stadium with Brooklet Hill, get himself out maybe a Mudkip, but that's a big miss from Robin. I mean, he had the option to go for the Elm and guarantee this turn, as well as get himself an extra basic Pokemon, but this slightly riskier route is definitely going to punish him here.
Yeah, and I think, again, we're seeing the power of Swampert and it being missing.
Yeah, he's had no Elm on turn 1 in this game or the last, and it really has slowed down his entire setup here. He's having to... he's already committed 2 energy to this Vulpix, and he's just going to have to end his turn on a Beacon, it looks like. He may want to pay retreat to preserve energy instead, but it's all very awkward for him at this point.
Yeah, and the thing about the way Robin has built his deck, you see it with a lot of the Zoroark decks where you max out on the cards that you want to see early, like for Professor Elm's Lecture. That way, later on, you can discard it with Trade or Power Draw in this case. And we saw that here with that Cynthia, just, I draw 2 Elms, and it essentially, you let loose yourself.
Yeah. And looks like Robin is debating what to search out here with his Beacon. He's going to grab himself a Tapu Lele GX as well as an Alolan Ninetales GX. This way, he's sort of protected against the best case and worst case scenarios. And that's going to be a big miss from him not being able to evolve up into that Alolan Ninetales GX this turn. That's going to be where he finishes here, and it's down to Jorge to see if he can, this turn, find a way to get some attackers going. He's already eyeing up an Ultra Ball, so he's got some good options going on here.
Yeah, definitely needs to take a big knockout against that Vulpix with 3 energy attached to it.
He does pop down a second Malamar and fires off a Mysterious Treasure. Wow, looks like he's going for another Let Loose. That means that he's pretty much got like no attackers left here. He could be attacking with an actual Malamar this turn to deal with a Vulpix if he wants to.
I'm not mad about attacking with Malamar here. You have the Ditto Prism to kind of replay it, and another Inkay as well.
It does get the job done.
It does 60 damage. That's what you need to do.
Fair play. Jorge really just saying no to Robin. Don't get that Swampert online. No more Gardevoirs for you. I just want to stop all of your plans before they get rolling.
Definitely one of the drawbacks for this Malamar deck, though, is bench space and how you manage it throughout the game. As you saw earlier, the Garbodor was discarded turn 1, so he can Rescue Stretcher it back later on and surprise it with the Ditto. Maybe Robin kind of forgot about it, and with his slow setup, eventually just goes full greed and gets rare candies and Ultra Balls and all that.
So here we go. Jorge, third Malamar comes onto the board. He does commit that Ditto to a Malamar, and he's going to be able to do a knockout on this Alolan Vulpix with the Malamar. What a fantastic scene here, trying to put your opponent into a really bad situation with, minimal draws possible.
And there we see an Ultra Ball. And now with that Vulpix being knocked out, he loses essentially the engine of his deck.
And again, he's having to commit another Tapu Lele GX to his board. again, we've said how important it is for Malamar to have lots of bench space available. Robin, wants to have as many stage 2s up as possible. He wants to have more Ninetales that helps him get going, and he's having to commit 2 spaces now to Tapu Lele GX just to recycle his hand with Cynthia.
Yeah, Tapu Lele, and then, of course, the Cosmog as well. We haven't really seen it come into effect much this match. It does take knockouts on a lot of the stuff that Jorge would present, but Robin's kind of just shied away from going that route.
Yeah, when it's just a 1-0-1 line, when you don't have the Alolan Ninetales available to you, it's just one of those things where you've got to hedge that you find your other stuff, because it's just so much more likely. Robin has Cynthia'd into a nice amount of energy cards, as well as an Ultra Ball and Rare Candy. It could be time for Swampert to get into play now.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, if he does go for that route, I think he will be left with only a Fairy and a Super Boost left in his hand, and those are 2 cards you don't really want to power draw away.
Yeah, so we are going to see the Secret Spring committing and simply just wanted to take the 1 prize here because...
I like the conservative play here from Robin. You do run the risk of your opponent playing a Guzma and taking the knockout on the Mudkip, and if that happens, you're really on the back foot. But you don't want to get rid of resources if you don't have to. And a prize card and then a draw for the turn, you can have some stuff you want to discard with Ultra Ball then.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So he ran the risk of the Mudkip getting knocked out, but at the same time, it means he holds all the energy cards. So if he's going to ignore the Gardevoir GX, that's going to get huge and just start running over Jorge's side of the field. So he's sort of hedging against that, especially because he wouldn't be able to get value from the Swampert anyway. You may as well hold the options for future turns. We are going to see Jorge now. He's going to use... send up that Inkay with the escape board. He's going to have a little scout through his deck, see what he can do to try and answer this Gardevoir. Obviously, having to sacrifice one of his Malamars just to get a knockout on that Vulpix is going to be a little bit awkward for him. We saw how easy it was for him just to blow up one Gardevoir GX and how much of a swing it was in the game. In that Game 2 situation, we are going to see him go for the Nest Ball here. And it looks like he's eyeing up the Dawnwings GX here, the Dawnwings Necrozma. They are currently on level prize cards, so it won't be able to use a GX attack, but it might be the only option he's got here.
Yeah, I think this is kind of signaling maybe a Guzma play, but his hand is pretty low as well. It might be all he has as an actual attacker. But the Malamar coming down definitely smells like Guzma to me.
Yeah, it might be a Guzma play. It might be that he just doesn't have any Psych Energies in his hand at all, so he needs all 3 recharges
that's right, yeah. Using
just so that he
Invasion.
can attack at all this turn. Here we go, 3 Psychic recharges all onto the Dawnwings Necrozma. It's going to use Invasion to jump into the active position and just have to commit to 120 damage. This Dawnwings only has 180 hit points. Robin already threatening 120 damage before attaching any energy this turn. We know he's got an abundance in his hand, so Jorge having to settle for going down in a few prize cards here because this Gardevoir is going to quite easily mop up if Robin wants to.
Yeah, and now you actually have the same kind of decision this turn for Robin. His hand works out to where like Choice Band Energy takes the knockout on this Dawnwings Necrozma, but he still wants to Ultra Ball, and those were 2 of the cards he was going to Ultra Ball away for that Swampert.
Yeah. His hand's too good. That's just the problem here. He, once again, is not able to get that Swampert out because if he would, he wouldn't have any cards to remove from his hand with it. He's able to pick up these 2 prizes quite easily and finally get some cards he's happy to...
Brooklet Hill, you can discard that card.
Yeah.
Second Candy, you don't want to, but you can.
Oh boy. Here comes, once again, 3 Psychic recharges. Now he could attach an energy card and pay retreat out of his Malamar. That's exactly what he's going to do here. So Jorge going all in, getting that Necrozma GX back into play, and finishing off this Gardevoir, trying to keep up with Robin here.
Yeah, the thing is, Jorge is playing with just like the 1 or 2 cards in his hand, although I think I saw a glimpse of his hand, and it was Guzma Lily.
Ooh, that's
not
pretty
bad.
big.
It's not bad.
When you're low on cards, those are the things that you're looking for, especially because you want to move your own Necrozma out the way next turn if at all possible. And if not, you've got to try and refresh your hand. Robin now, he's got 2 Rare Candies and at least 1 Ultra Ball in his hand, so he's got still a choice of what he wants to get going here.
And he finally found another supporter that he wants to discard in Professor Elm's lecture, so the pretty good Ultra Ball here.
There it goes. He is going to find himself that Swampert and start drawing cards. That's always the key to winning games. You want to see as many cards as possible, especially Robin's deck. He's holding on to another rare candy in his hand, so if this power draw is able to get into, more Ultra Balls, more Gardevoirs, even that Solgaleo, these are all things that Robin's after.
And this is a pretty back and forth game here too. Jorge is kind of in the driver's seat with the 3 Malamar in play, but his only attacker being that Necrozma.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how this Swampert ends up, how much value he can get out of the Swampert. I think this is really, we're on a knife edge at the moment, how close this game is. This Swampert could bring riches to Robin by getting some stage 2s rolling, or he could be, once again, a really tough spot here.
Professor Elm's lecture. And
that's just the risk that he has to take here. He might have to get rid of the Guzma from his hand. Yeah, here it goes. And if he can find himself...
The Guzma's hard because that Cosmog's active.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's found himself a Gardevoir, found himself a rare candy. Looks like... oh, man, that was a really, really good 3.
Does he have enough to
he can,
Ultra Ball and then, super boost the Solgaleo?
He can Secret Spring out of the active and attach the Super Boost just as 1 unit of energy, and maybe use a Twilight or just do 30 damage onto the Necrozma. That's potentially his best move here. But it's, again, not ideal. He's going to Brooklet Hill, try and find himself another Pokemon. He does have, the 2/0/2 line of Swampert available, and that's what he's going to try and dig out now to get as many draws as possible.
2/1/2. Can't forget that Marsh Stomp.
Yeah. That Marsh Stomp, of course, with the Ditto Prism Star, a nice option to have. He really does value drawing as many cards as possible. 2 Swamperts in play is equivalent to 3 Zoroarks.
Yeah, it's not bad, and it gives up the prizes of 1 Zoroark.
Yeah, looks like we're going to see the Secret Spring just to the Gardevoir, and he's going to pass with a Cosmog active, give Jorge the mission of trying to pick off other attackers here.
Again, playing it super safe here, but I don't mind that play at all. Jorge's needing a good combination of energy and Guzma.
Oh boy, we're going to see the 1 Psychic Recharge onto the Marshadow. This is looking like he might once again be going for a Guzma play and just pay retreat. But instead, he's going to go for that Lily and refresh his hand here instead. And let's see what other... Once again, he's just sort of... He's so committed with those 2 Marshadows on his board to this 1 Necrozma GX that he's really hoping that it can stay on the field for another turn, as he's had to just sort of settle for a slower turn here. And he's going to Psychic Recharge once to the Marshadow so that maybe he can just pay retreat out of there. He's eyeing up some of his basic Pokemon here, so maybe he has a Rescue Stretcher in his hand to recycle things. And that is definitely what he's eyeing up. But it's really just a slow turn where he needs to simply just draw more cards, because he's been, picking up a card and playing it instantly just to stay up in tempo this game. And now we're seeing he's had to have a slow turn here.
Yeah, but this does buy Robin an extra turn here. And it's going to also be interesting. Jorge chooses not to play that Shine of Punishment in his hand. It's one way to build up damage on those Gardevoirs to where you can take a knockout with only 3 energy instead of 4.
And we do see that first power draw from Robin. He has a second Ultra Ball Rare Candy combo. He could get a second Swampert up if he wants to, get even more draws. He could also, now that he's picked up that double Colorless Energy, start moving into the Solgaleo GX if he wishes. And now that Super Boost is going to be live, so Gardevoir is going to be swinging pretty hard now.
Yeah, so he would need quite a few things to pull off the knockout with Gardevoir GX, I believe. So opting, so Galeo GX, it's pretty good.
Yeah, so there was the dream situation where you go for the second Swampert here, and then you power draw into a Fairy Energy, and then you can Secret Spring active and Super Boost the back and go for a big Infinite Force. But this is a lot safer. We know that Robin already has lots of energy in his discard pile. He can Rare Candy simply into the Solgaleo, has 250 hit points and Psychic Resistance. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and he's going to power up multiple threats now.
Yeah, and there we go. 2 energy down on that Gardevoir, 3 energy total. And not to mention, a cool 120 damage on that Necrozma GX.
Definitely relevant damage here, and Jorge still has that headache of, how do I move this bulky GX Pokemon? I've put energies onto my Marshadows so that I can pay retreat out of them, but now those Psych energies are on my board. I can't put them back onto the Necrozma GX, so he's really found it difficult to move this Necrozma after getting that big knockout.
Yeah, it's looking like he might want to eye down something like Tapu Lele, but opts for the Swampert. He does only need 3 prizes, so he will have to knock out a non-GX, essentially.
Ooh, wow. So we saw Jorge. He committed 2 Psych Energies to each Marshadow, and it's meant that he's not been able to get an attack off this turn, so he's just had to pay retreat out of 1 Marshadow, so he has that Psych Energy in the discard pile for future. And did I just see Robin's hand correctly?
Meanwhile, Robin is drawing cards that he still cannot power draw away, having the Super Boost and the Guzma in his hand. Probably the 2 cards he would want to see right now.
That is, you know, the dream right now.
You essentially just Guzma up the Necrozma, knock it out with Solgaleo, charge up someone else.
The only thing he's debating is it worth trying to deal with a Malamar? It means that there's not any other sort of attacker to worry about. He can even super boost the active, which is exactly what he's going to do. And now he's threatening all sorts of attackers. And he could just take out the knockout here, guarantee that Guzma for next turn. It's a passive play, but it's also exactly what he needs to do. I mean, he's threatening knockout on 3 different stage 2s right now.
Yeah. And one thing it does, too, is not taking the knockout on that Necrozma GX on the bench means if he chooses to attack with it, which, by the way, he only plays 1.
Yeah.
If he chooses to attack with it, it's going to be damaged. If he took a knockout and then Jorge rescue stretchered it back, it's going to be fresh, a little bit harder to knock out. You would need more energy with that Gardevoir. Really heads-up play here from Robin.
So Jorge, looks like his option is going to be trying to find Dawnwing's Necrozma if he can, or if he can use a Marshadow GX to copy that attack, so that he could use his GX attack, finish off the Swampert, and hope that Robin just doesn't have a Guzma in his 1 or 2 card hand. But I know that the Dawnwings is already in his discard pile. I don't know if he has the Marshadow available. He does have that Rescue Stretcher, though, so he could even just put that straight onto his board. Time has now been called, so it's on Jorge. He's turn 0, and he's going to have to take some prizes and really hope that Robin can't clear up the game with Guzma, which we know he does have, but Jorge's having to go through the paces now, use 3 Psychic Recharges, get that GX attack to finish off the Swampert, put himself in the best position possible, were it not for Robin already having the answers.
Yeah, Robin just playing it cool. You don't want to give your opponent any extra information, especially when you win on the next turn.
So here comes the Lily for 6. Jorge has done all the right things this turn to try and make it as close as possible. Here comes the invasion, and he's going to be able to use his Moon's Eclipse GX attack to finish off this Swampert, putting himself down to 2 prizes, really putting him in good stead. But Robin already holding on to that Guzma from last turn. We know that both Marshadow were already on the board, so there was no way that Robin could have lost that card from his hand, and it meant that he was able to simply sweep up those last 2 prizes for the game.
Yeah, kind of pulling a comeback here, not really having the ideal setup.